Welcome to the Universal Monsters Podcast, the show whose creator slept with your mother. I'm your host, Jake, author of The Devil's League and creator of hot quality content, and with me, as always, the creator and host of Screenplay Archaeology, Kieran Midhead, a.k.a. Bruce. How you doing?
Good.
And joining us this month is the first appearance of Xander. May I call you Xander?
You may.
I may. All right, cool. It is from Emerald Quill Studios, a channel from YouTube where I am shocked at the amount of Universal Monster love and dedication you have. At least when you reached out to me, that's what you said it was about. So always good to see that. Always good to be part of that ecosphere. But every month, my fine co-host and I, and also this fun guest, break down a bunch of Universal Monster news across movies, shows, theme parks, and physical media, and anything else regarding these classic monsters. And after that, we discuss the topic and the title of the episode. So, are you guys ready for some news?
I don't actually know the news, so yeah.
I'm not ready.
This time I did not share it.
You're going to have to give me 5 minutes and a cup of coffee. Yeah.
You know what? I'll just pull the plug. I'll pull the plug in the whole thing. No news today.
Dang. Okay.
Scotch.
So I'll start with the little piece of news here. Van Helsing's 20th anniversary just went by.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it just happened this past month. This is a movie that never connected with the general audience, but it is and always will be one of my favorite monster movies probably ever. I won't linger on it very long since I'm in the minority, but happy birthday, Van Helsing. What do you guys think about Van Helsing, just briefly? What do you guys feel about it?
It's fine. It's decent. I bought the 4K. It's not a great movie, but it's a watchable experience. I don't hate it.
I will say that I had different opinions, but then I watched your video on why Van Helsing is a good movie, Jake, and you made some really good points. I agree. It's a movie that I had never seen as a kid until last Halloween when it was my friend's pick for the Halloween movie for him. And I gotta say, I hate that I like it so much. It's a guilty pleasure for me. It's really guilty pleasure for me. I've rewatched it, I think, 2 extra times, and I have a DVD copy of it because it just felt fitting to have it on DVD, and then I have a 1080 digital copy of it. I enjoy it for what it is. It's a fun time. I want to make a fan edit where the only difference, besides some things cut out, is just that it's black and white.
Yeah. It's a great
I think it
intro.
would have looked cool if the whole thing was black and white. I was like,
I don't think Universal, if Steven Sommers wanted to do that, they would never have been like, yeah, multi-million-dollar film. Just don't remove the color in modern day. Like they would hate that.
I think he tried to do The Mummy in black and white.
The first one?
I don't know. It's just the intro of Van Helsing is
like
black
that.
and white, and it looks awesome. And I'm like, why is the rest of the movie not like this? Come on. Also, the guy who plays Dracula, he is the highlight of that movie. Man, my man is
he's great.
Going all in
he's
on
so
that
fun.
role.
I mean, he's not a super dramatic deep, but it's a fun role. I enjoy it.
He's having a blast with it.
He was like the go-to movie bad guy for like 4 years there.
Yes, it was this Mission Impossible 2,
where he's like
League.
the henchman.
Yeah, in League where he's the Phantom.
And
What the hell's
Moulin
going on in
Rouge.
that movie.
He was the bad guy in Moulin Rouge.
Yeah, he was that too. It was like
He
early
was
2000s.
He was the Phantom and Moriarty and M from James Bond in League.
By 2004,
Wow.
he was like king of the world, that guy. So, yeah. All right. Well, like I said, I won't linger on the topic. I'm sure everyone who's listening is just like, let me click any other video now because they said Van Helsing. But let me get to the biggest news that we have so far. The Wolfman producer, the upcoming 2025 Lee Winnell film, it just got pushed. Ken Cow, a producer on the film, confirmed that the upcoming film is not connected to a shared universe, comparing it to how Joker was not part of the DCEU. I don't believe him. I'm going to call him out right now. I don't. I think he's playing coy, and I think it's all fun and well and good, but I think they're going to do a big thing again. They're going to try.
I agree, but I also applaud him for denying that there's a universe, because I feel like the expectations of universes is a bad thing.
That's true, especially in modern day.
Yeah. People are so tired of universes now. It's better to just be like that.
I mean, I would say even if it is true, there's still going to be stupid movie news websites like saying, "Oh, they're restarting the Dark Universe," even though they're not.
Yeah,
Literally every Universal monster movie that has come out since The Mummy has been them going blah blah Dark Universe. Blah,
I was
blah.
looking up news because I always look up news like the day of we do the recording or the night before, so that I can get like the latest stuff. And of course, the first thing I saw was Abigail ending explained how it connects to the Dark Universe, and I'm like, you gotta be.
Oh my God,
did you watch Abigail?
I did. I watched Abigail.
What, does Tom Cruise show up? Like, no, it's just a film. Leave it alone.
That would have been funny if Tom Cruise showed up at the
That
end.
would have. I don't know if I would have enjoyed that. I would have laughed. That would have been really funny. But Jesus Christ. But yeah, no. So I just
tell you,
wanted to
they
say,
really wanted to do Dracula, though. That's for sure.
They sure did, and I think they chose not to do it. I think the creators chose not to do it. That's what I've leaned from that. I don't think Universal said no.
I disagree. Because if
Really?
they chose not to do it, I don't think they would have stuck that really like third ending where Dracula all of a sudden shows up and he's indirectly not Dracula.
I think they did that to like play it coy. Like they pulled it back a little, but they didn't like rewrite it enough to not be that, you know? So yeah, we'll see. If they ever get like a sequel, we'll see that hopefully develops more.
Probably not a sequel though, because it's not doing that well.
It is not doing that well. It is not.
It's a shame too.
Yeah.
It's getting beat by monkeys right now.
It sure is. Deservedly so. I love Kingdom so much more than Abigail. It's so good. I'll make a Planet
Kingdom
Games
was really
podcast
good.
next. Yeah.
Yeah, it was.
On topic, the main actress of Abigail, who played Joey, spoke out recently about how they shot an ending of the movie where we actually see her reunite with her son. Apparently, it was cut out because the ambiguous ending made more sense for the story, and I personally agree. I think what is better than what could have been.
I mean, it would have been fine,
Yeah.
but it doesn't really have added anything. It would have just been like, oh, that's kind of implied anyways.
Yeah, that was the implication. So
Yeah, I would have gotten annoyed if there was like a third ending, because there's like three. It like ends with Abigail and Joey being like, yeah, okay, we're cool, and then all of a sudden Dracula shows up, and now again it's like, okay, we're cool, and then if there was another one, I'd been like, oh my God, just let me out of the
don't you
theater.
mean like Christopherson Shoesmith Maker Man or whatever his human
Oh
name
yeah,
was?
yeah. Hey, he said I've been known as
Lazar or
many
something.
names. Okay,
I'll give you $1 right
they
now if
pulled
any of you
that
two
from a
can pull his
different
name.
movie, actually.
What's Dracula's name in Abigail? What is it?
It's Lazar.
Damn it,
Something.
Christophe Lazar. If we combine our forces, we got the film.
Yeah.
But all right.
Something
Yeah,
like
and
that. They pulled that bit from a different film, actually.
Did
I've
they?
been known by many names thing. Yeah, so there was a movie a couple years back called The Invitation, and it was about Dracula getting a new third wife. And at the very end, he's like saying like, "Oh, I've been called by many names, Dracula, something like this, but my favorite one was Dracula." And so, like, I don't know, maybe it was just one of those like, you know, phenomenons where both writers came up with the same idea. But I was like, oh, that was from that film.
I mean, not for nothing, but it feels like a generic, like a character that's a bajillion years old would probably say that, you know. It's not like
I've heard it. I've heard that in a million movies. Yeah. It's in the first Silent Hill movie. That's where I remember it from the most.
I just wanted to point it out because I thought it was interesting.
I knew that movie existed. I didn't know Dracula was in it.
Yeah. It the twist is that it's a Dracula film, which was a pretty cool twist.
Most people are like, stay away from that movie, so I stayed away.
It was
Fair
alright.
enough. Well,
Abigail's better.
that is all I have for movie news by design, because I wanted to. I don't know how much time we're going to spend on the sequels we have. I actually asked you, Xander, like, hey, you know, what movies do you think that we would disagree on potentially the most, or what ones do you think stand out to you as like really special and overlooked or underrated, or vice versa if you don't think they're very good when they're actually good? And you came to me with, well, I got a few of them here, and maybe we shouldn't spoil it for the audience, but I'll start with Frankenstein meets the Wolfman.
All right.
So, who wants to start with this? We'll start at, like, I guess, brief opinions, and then we'll kind of go back and forth, you know, whatever works.
I guess I can go.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, go ahead. I'll since I'm the defender, I'll be the last one to talk.
I'm actually kind of a defender on this one.
Oh.
I like it. I don't love it. I think it's a good Wolfman 2, guest starring a Frankenstein monster. But I think it's got some good scenes in it. And it's got some problems, which we'll obviously talk about, but I think it's all right.
Okay.
I find it very weird that people specifically associated with the Alien franchise like to talk shit about it in interviews, but other than that,
Yeah.
Wait, really?
Yeah,
What?
Because
yes.
I think I know what you're talking about when somebody asked James Cameron about Alien versus Predator, and he was like,
Yes.
"No, that's just like Frankenstein meets the Wolfman garbage crossover or something."
Yes, and then several years before that, Sigourney Weaver was in an interview talking about how she decided she had to die in Alien 3 because they were talking about AVP back then. And she said, "Oh, it's like Frankenstein meets the Wolfman." I'm like, "What the fuck?"
What the hell? That is random.
I'd watch Meets the Wolfman over Alien 3, but
First of all, yeah. Second, I would agree if you're talking about it in the sense of those two different franchises meant to be separate, and then both kind of, like the producers are like, okay, let's bring them together and hopefully bolster both, and that's the goal of it. Maybe
yes, that's
there's a comparison to be made.
specifically what they both said, and I thought it was strange because they used almost identical word choice in these two different places. This interview from years ago and the Reddit AMA that Cameron did. But basically they were saying, "Oh, this is what you do when you run out of ideas."
Yeah, that was the implication, or what they're flat out saying. But yeah.
Well, I mean, you can't take them to space because they're already from space.
True. Yeah. All right. Well, why don't you go next, Xander? And because you guys are relatively similar, I'll save my thoughts.
So I will say that a lot of the reasons why I've bothered so much to defend and look so deep as I have into Frankenstein meets the Wolfman is because it was my childhood favorite film growing up. I completely loved it. It was my complete favorite. But I love that film to pieces. I love everything about it. I don't know. I've call it fan looking too deep into stuff, but a lot of the problems that people bring up I think are misunderstood, to say. But you said to keep it brief at this part, so I'll just keep it brief right there. I have notes.
I guess I'll. Yeah, sure. I'm going off memory, but I will also start by keeping it relatively brief. I'm very well acquainted with this film. I'll just say disappointed by it. And I won't talk about the poster. I'll get there. I'm sure there'll be a point.
I knew that was going to come up.
The poster, we'll talk about the poster later, but it's, that's a big thing for me. As far as the movie itself, to judge it on its own merits, marketing aside, Frankenstein, despite being the first word in the title, I feel like the monster is barely in it. He is more of a plot point most of the way through, and the ending, I know they recorded dialogue of Bela Lugosi following up from Ghost, but that didn't play well, so they cut it all out, and now he's just there, and he just freaks out and yells. And to me, there could have been more, attempts at continuity, because that's a big deal in this series, how there's just nothing connects to anything else. But B, it would have made him, I guess, more of a character, because if you remove, even if it's bad dialogue, if you remove the dialogue, you're left with no dialogue, which means that you don't have a character. Not that you necessarily were planning like a big arc or something, but like just to establish who he is, what he wants, whatever's going on. And that's kind of my issue. And then, of course, the ending is like the bona fide Universal Monster ending where everything just explodes after 2 minutes of chaos. And oh no, we're all washed down the dam, but we're all fine the next film regardless. But even that, notwithstanding, the story itself that built up to that point, Bruce, you said it was a good Wolfman 2. I don't think I agree, because I feel like Larry Talbot goes through the same kind of motions as the first movie. Like except this time he's been the Wolfman, so he's just continuously looking for a cure and relatively sad and freaks out in social settings. Like that scene where like everyone's just yelling and dancing in the city street or something, and he like has a conniption fit. That goes
the impromptu musical number.
That goes on way too long. B, probably shouldn't be there. You take that scene out of the movie, it's just flat out probably better. And yeah, Lon Chaney Jr., he's played every single monster, all the big four anyway. he's at his best with the Wolfman, so in this one, I'm okay with his acting, but I will just say it leaves a little to be desired. Like he's not exactly, I think, elevating the role the same way like Lugosi or Karloff elevated their monster roles. That's just, to me, like they take what's there and they bring a certain gravity. And Lon Chaney Jr. is okay. He's better here than he is in other films that we're going to talk about, like Son of Dracula.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry, that was a little long, but that's kind of my cliff notes on it to start things off.
Nah, you're fine.
So, what do you think?
All right. Okay, I will agree that a dream of mine is to see it's impossible probably, but to see the cut of the film where Lugosi's dialogue wasn't cut out, because I think that'd be just really cool. And
I'm willing to bet it no longer exists, sadly.
Oh yeah.
The script exists, but that's about it.
The script exists. Oh,
yeah.
Dude, you're the script guy. Get me the script.
I think it's on
the dialogue
Amazon,
is
too. It's like rated.
I can get it to you for free. So.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
I think I scanned that bastard in myself.
Send me it too, please. Yeah, no, I've watched a video where someone read out the script thing and like kind of recreated the scene with pictures and stuff, and the dialogue is a little whack for the Frankenstein monster, so not exactly a lot was missed. Like there's not a lot of different characterization with it. Although I will say, to play devil's advocate with the Frankenstein monster in that film, by the time Son of Frankenstein, I don't think Frankenstein's monster was the same as he was in Bride. So he was already kind of dropping off by the time he hit the Wolfman.
And let's not forget, Ghost of Frankenstein wrote the character into a gigantic corner by putting Igor's brain in him.
Yeah.
In his head. Where it's like, so he's not even the same character as he was at the beginning anymore. He's just Igor.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, well, I'm glad you put all those points, Jake, because allow me, if you will, a moment to say, well, you're completely wrong on all of them.
Yay!
Yeah. No, okay, so I think this is a wonderful follow-up to The Wolfman, because while it does kind of like on the surface go through the same beats, it's not really the same, because in the Wolfman, Larry's kind of just struggling with this other side of him, and he's like trying to like figure it out and like hold it back and everything, and eventually comes to the conclusion that, you know, the only way to stop is to basically get, you know, he gives it to his father to, you know, help out. There's really not like a goal he has. He's just kind of going through this thing. Whereas in the second one, he's already like knows that he's killing people. He finds out he can't die, and he's already like becoming a murderous beast and stuff. So he's going through depression, and he's basically become completely suicidal at this point. And that the film kind of goes through this journey of someone who's wanting to die, but they can't die and everything. And it's kind of like a thematic theme and everything. And actually, I defend the musical number scene. Because if you listen to the lyric... Yeah, okay, so here's the thing. And this kind of goes... This might be putting too much personal stuff into it, of my own personal thing, because I have had experiences with being suicidal and depressed and stuff. And when you're like that, or at least for me, you don't want to be happy. You don't want to be told to be happy or like why life is good and everything. And if you listen to lyrics and stuff, they say there's a line where it's like... may they live long and happily, and everyone's like cheering and stuff, and Larry just realized that the only way, the only lead he had to being able to kill himself, she's like, no, I can't give it to you. So he's already upset at that and everything else he's gone through, and now he has to listen to all these people talk about everything, and then they start telling him, hey, come on, be alive and everything, life is great and everything, and he freaks out, he lashes out because he's completely done with that. And I think that scene's important because it's another step of that suicidal angle he's going through, where he's just trying to, you know, he's just done with life. He's like depressed and everything. So that's my defense for why the musical number is good, because that freak out is really good at the end.
If I could chime in a little bit, I can honestly say, talk to a lot of people that have seen Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman, a lot of different opinions. Some people like, some people don't. I've never heard that scene defended. And might I say, that is probably the best possible defense I've heard for it yet. That to me is like, from a creative point of view, if you're writing the movie, that is what you're trying to do with that scene. So that's for me. Bravo. I don't agree. I don't like it, but like, you know what? That's
completely fine.
Point.
It's
I think on paper I get it, but what I think happened is that it started with, let's put a musical number in this movie and then write the lyrics to make it fit into the film.
Yeah. It's really because like at the first part it's about the winery and stuff, and it's really towards the end where they're like, may they live long and everything, and then Larry's like, no, stop that, fucking get that away from me, I don't want to live.
And then the line that sets them off is, for life is short and death is long.
For life is short and death is long, and that's like it's all that.
It's just funny. This came out the same year as the talking remake of The Phantom of the Opera, which is just way too much musical. It gets spilled over into this movie.
Oh my god, yeah. And then also, I think just as to continue off that whole like sequel of a great sequel to Wolfman, that opening scene indirectly adds new lore where, I don't know, maybe again, this is me looking way too deep, but ever since I was a kid, when the opening scene happens and they take off the coffin and the moonlight hits and it slowly goes over, I'm like, oh, moonlight heals werewolves. That's why they can't die, because if their skin is exposed to, or their body's exposed to moonlight, they'll heal again. And I think that was a great way to indirectly add lore and stuff. I could be wrong, probably am wrong, but I think there's that it's kind of like an interesting thing of how they kind of indirectly said that.
Yeah, no, it is. It's not fair to judge a movie by like retcons to other movies, because the full moon thing has never really been consistent with Universal. But that is an interesting point. Within the context of itself, it does work in terms of the alien.
I will say this.
That's just to defend a point of indirect lore building.
Yeah, this one actually added the full moon entirely.
Yeah, it wasn't in Wolfman.
Yeah, this was the first one. Yeah, completely.
It was when
and
something
actually,
blooms.
when the autumn moon is bright. So in the original, that's why he transforms every night, because the werewolf curse happens the entire autumn season, or the entire autumn season. So
certain times of the year is what they say.
Yeah, so they changed it to a different way, and I gotta say, the biggest thing is that I think all the werewolf scenes in this movie are awesome. Like, they're so cool. That you have the very first one in London where he's like running around, he hops up on the little thing and then he comes down, and then you have that cool shot where he kills the policeman and drags him off, and you get that huge shadow on the wall. It just looks awesome. And then you have the second one where I wish they showed the girl getting killed, but whatever, you still get this cool chase. And then my favorite part, which is when he falls down in the ice cave, and you get to see, like it's almost like watching this scary animal and everything, and you get to see it in like a natural way, what it's like by itself when it's in a completely different habitat, and the way he's like running around the ice and everything. It's just, I think it was like so well performed and like so interesting to be able to like see the Wolfman just be in that kind of situation or anything.
Mm-hmm.
And then also the ice cave scene in general.
Yeah. That's pretty cool.
Oh, I will.
I was gonna say, this is where they added that he's like a parkour master.
True, he's jumping on top of stuff.
Peter Parkour, get out of the way.
I will say the action here, I don't like it just from a choreography standpoint. I think it's leaving a lot to be desired, and I can elaborate more on that, but I've talked a lot about that on other videos and stuff. It is probably the best Wolfman action of the classic Wolfman series. Between Wolf, both houses, and I guess not the end of Abbott is probably better, but like aside from this, it's better, because all the other ones, it's either implied or it's like he just grabs your neck and the guy goes, and they slowly fall down. But in the action in this, to criticize it a little bit, I don't know what people were expecting in 1943 movie theater audiences when they paid a ticket for this, but when they got the end fight and it's like less than 2 minutes of these two full-grown men trying to like strangle each other to death, and then everything explodes and it says the end, to me, that is just so not. And maybe this is my modern day brain. I'm used to like when movies imply that there's going to be a big fight at the end, which is the entire title of this film, then I expect at least not just a long fight, but like a decent fight. It's like 5 or 10 minutes, depending on what it is, and at least for it to be visually interesting or serve the story or serve the characters in some way. For this film, even like from a character point of view, I mean, yeah, monster's taking the girl. A, there's no dialogue. I don't know why the monster's taking the girl. Who gives a shit? B, Larry Talbot just turns into the Wolfman. I know the wolf moon is happening, but like seemingly by choice is like a defensive reaction. I don't know. It just didn't click for me entirely. So
yeah, I get what you mean about that, because I mean, I don't think they really had choreography back then.
True. I can't expect John Wick to show up. Like, obviously, you know, there's some expectations. So
yeah, I will say it's a 1940s movie. You gotta, you know, give it the benefit of the doubt with that. Like, we're talking about movies where, you know, most of it was dialogue and stuff. It wasn't like huge on the action stuff. But
okay,
I guess to go into the fight.
Then don't make that poster. All right, don't put them on the poster with this awesome, amazing wrestling match that you never get in any of the movies. All right, I'm there.
Yeah, but Frankenstein eats the Wolfman at the end.
He does. He picks up the thing that the Wolfman's on and throws him, and then he like very clearly with wires just glides to the wall, and it takes him like an hour to get there. It's really funny. But yeah, no, that technically does happen.
You know what? I'm gonna play devil's advocate here with your whole poster thing.
Please.
I don't think Bride of Frankenstein should be called Bride of Frankenstein with bride all over when she's only in there for 5 minutes.
That is a problem I have with that film, but, and I don't know if Bruce is going to bring this up as his point, but technically the title could refer to the bride of the guy who's called Frankenstein.
Actually,
yeah, I remember you guys talking about that once.
Yes, my point was that the title was the bride title was like a relatively late change. It was called throughout development, like even during shooting, it was called Return of Frankenstein.
Huh.
See, that would have been
interesting.
Better. I would have been fine with that. Yeah.
I think I like Bride better because the movie's, even though she's not on screen a lot, the movie is all about the bride. Ever since Pretoria shows up, that's what the point of it is. Frankenstein meets the Wolfman. I guess he technically meets him, but it's not really about them.
Yeah, I mean, Return of Frankenstein, neither of them went anywhere, so they're not returning. It's like Batman Returns. Where is he returning?
Yeah,
he returned to screens.
They both died at the end.
He returned to cinemas.
I don't know. Okay, so my only defense for the fight scene, besides it just being a 1940s movie, I watched this movie for the very first time when I was like 8. So my love for the fight scene completely based off nostalgia. Watching it as an 8-year-old, that was the coolest thing ever. In fact, watching the entire movie as an 8-year-old was a cool thing.
Sure. I also like the fact that they. I was gonna say I like the fact that they meet and they're like buddies for like 20 minutes.
Yeah,
that is fun.
That's a cool thing. It's really interesting. But yeah, no, when I watched the Wolfman for the very first time, it was on VHS. I was like 4 or 5 years old. And I thought that's all there was. So I'd seen Frankenstein as well, and I was like, cool. Then later on, when the Van Helsing movie came out, all the movies got re-released. So my mom got me the DVD set for Wolfman and for Frankenstein. And for a while, I was just watching the Wolfman one. I just kept rewatching Wolfman. I was like, man, I really wish there was more that happened. Frankenstein meets the Wolfman happens. I'm like, holy, there's more to the story. What? And then I got this whole thing where like they fight at the end. I was like, oh, this is so cool. And honestly, for a 1940s film, I think it's a pretty good fight. I mean, you got them kind of throwing each other around. Like, again, Wolfman's climbing, jumping down. And then the water scene, you know, I know it's just like another Universal things explode and everything. That's pretty impressive to just get all this water and just shoot it down on these two poor actors in this makeup. And if you like pay close attention, because I've rewatched Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman 1,000 times since the very first time I watched it, they're still fighting in that rushing thing. Like they're still going at each other, which that's something.
And I will say to defend the ending where everything blows up. They actually restrained themselves and did not bring the angry mob back for the ending.
Yes.
And they didn't,
Yeah, exactly.
They didn't blow shit up. They didn't burn it down. They went, and it's a really cool, like, biblical level flood that happens in like.
It is.
Yeah.
It is, and they chose to use one less of their tropes in that end scene.
Yeah.
But
In
they
fact,
used a ton of other ones.
I would argue the villagers have their own kind of like, it's a different take on the villagers, because most of them, like, they get mad and everything, but then, you know, Frank is all like, hey, let's, you know, if you guys give me a second, I think I can figure this out. And all right, fine. And then the mayor is like, okay, let's not blow up the dam. That's a bad idea. And Varsik is just completely drunk, and just, it's a completely different thing. It's not just a mob mentality, I feel.
Yeah,
Yep.
They consistently set him up as being the biggest asshole in town from the beginning.
Yeah,
of the movie.
exactly.
So the guy singing the song saying, "Oh, you're our favorite dude," is totally lying.
Yeah.
Well, you know, they gotta get drunk off wine, so of course he's the favorite dude. You know, closes the tavern.
All right.
And then
Well,
I will say, before we move on, I have one funny joke about Frankenstein meets the Wolfman.
Oh, please.
Is that the guy who plays Frank is the same guy who plays Frank in the first Wolfman, who's and I've always made it a funny headcanon that what happened was he, after the events of the Wolfman, he somehow gained sudden memory loss, decided to pursue his longtime love of medical science, and that's how he became that. That's just my funny headcanon.
I actually have a few observations left. Sure. I like how the beginning of the movie catches you up on what happened after the Wolfman, about how his father died.
Yeah, that's cool, right?
Murdering his son. That's cool. One thing I think is hilarious is how Maliva just disappears from the movie at the ending. So you're left to believe that Frank and Ilsa just left her in the castle and died.
True. That's unfortunately just because she died during production. She passed away.
Oh, she did?
Production. That's why. Yeah.
So
she was in
really...
the script originally. Yeah,
her last line in the movie is, "He's not crazy. He just wants to die."
Exactly. He simply wants to die. Again, the theme of the movie is suicide.
And interesting fact, I believe this was Dwight Fry's last Universal movie before he died.
True.
Wow.
He has a small part in this as Rudy, and he has the most unintentionally hilarious line in it where, like, it looks like the little girl's killed by some animal. He goes, "What kind of animals are there around here that can kill people?" Then you immediately hear the wolf howl in the background.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, a wolf.
Yeah.
Also, an extra note: the detective in the beginning is a huge, like, he's so fun to watch. Where he's like, "I'd be off my top," and like, thank you.
I have a note about him. The director who made this movie, Roy William Neal, he mostly did the Holmes movies for Universal. And that's the actor who played Inspector Lestrade in those movies, and he's even wearing the same costume.
Oh, okay.
Interesting.
Like the exact same costume, the same raincoat.
Damn. Wow.
The Sherlock Holmes movies that take place in the then modern day, and he fights Nazis.
They're also in continuity with the Universal Monsters because the Creeper's there, so he shows up.
Right. I heard about that.
Gotta love the Creeper.
Before moving on, I'll say, besides the fact that I'm trying to work on compliments now because now we're at the end here. I enjoy that it's more of a Wolfman film than a Frankenstein film. Despite Frankenstein being more interesting of a character, I think Wolfman, you can do more with him, like as a protagonist. So it makes sense that he is kind of the star and then Frankenstein comes in. I still wish they used more Frankenstein, but that's just me.
Yeah, me too. Although I will say I think a lot of my positive attitude towards this goes is because I saw these movies in a complete wacko order as a kid, just based on what was at the video store, what was on TV, whatever. And so I saw House of Frankenstein before this, which the VHS cover has a giant Frankenstein head on it. And I didn't even see the little Wolfman in the corner, so I didn't know this was a Wolfman movie. And I'm watching it, and I'm like, I'm waiting for Frankenstein. And he's not in the movie, really. And it's like, oh, come on.
House of Frankenstein. I have, oh man, it's everything I don't like about Wolfman. It's like they made it even worse in House of Frankenstein. We'll get there.
But then I finally see this, and it's like, oh, he's actually in this movie. He has a role of sorts.
That's true.
Yeah.
And it is funny, like the. I was just going to say the continuity of Ghost is funny because they added a secret compartment inside the secret compartment from that movie.
Oh, right. Yeah, I was just gonna say, Jay, I Larry Talbot's Wolfman is my favorite character of all time. So I actually find him extremely interesting. Frankenstein's monster is like cool, but yeah,
Interesting.
that's why I defend him so much. So because I love him
Okay,
to death.
you're the guy we want on this show, man. Because I see so far from that. That's just not where I am at all. So I'm glad you're here.
Yeah, no, I could talk your ear off about Larry Talbot specifically.
So in release order, next would be Son of Dracula. After that is House of Frankenstein. Son of Dracula. I'll keep it brief because I'll be honest. Even rewatching it in the background, I feel like it was in the background too much. I should have paid more attention. It's still kind of washed over me. The main reason, aside from some like story things and script things that I wasn't really feeling in Son of Dracula, was the performance of Lon Chaney Jr. I compliment him in Meets the Wolfman. I think he did okay. I don't think he's a good Dracula. I don't think he's a good fit for the role, physically or acting wise. I thought he never clicked to me as like that kind of presence. And even if you want to play up the romantic aspect of Dracula, which they kind of tried to in this, I mean, they've even done that better later on with the Frank Langella Dracula, which is not a great movie, but even then, I think he was so miscast, and they just went off like, oh, he's a popular name, make him all the monsters, and so they did. Yeah. So I wasn't feeling Son at all.
That's entirely the reason why. It was just star power, that's why.
Yeah.
He was the new Boris Karloff for the 40s.
Yes.
So.
Although they didn't give him everything, he campaigned hard to play the Phantom of the Opera in the remake, and that would have been horrific.
Oh my God, why did he want that?
Because it was his dad's.
Because his father.
Yeah.
It was.
Yeah,
you know.
That makes sense. Never thought about that.
It was. He wanted to try to do his own makeup too, but they wouldn't let him.
Yeah,
much to the
he's not
credit
as good.
Jack Pierce.
I was gonna say he's, the man of 1,000 faces is not exactly translating down to his generational bloodline there, but yeah, no, I'm really glad that he didn't get that role. Kind of wish he didn't get this one too. Actually, no, I definitively wish he didn't get this one too.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I actually
that's my main
don't
thing
think
about that.
He plays that bad of a Dracula.
Oh,
I
yeah?
didn't think he did that bad of a job for the script and story. I don't know, call me a Lon Chaney fan, but everyone was saying how awful he was, and I'm watching the movie, and for like the story that is, I'm like, he's doing a fine job. I don't understand. Like I don't know. I think the very end when he's watching his coffin burn up, and he's like, "Do you realize what you've done?" and everything. I'm like, "Oh wow, that's actually a really good emotional reaction." And everything. I thought you did a really good job.
The end is better than I remember. When we watched the end the first time for the Monsterthon, I remember by the end of it, I was just so checked out. The ending is a decent ending with the burned coffin. I'll admit it's better than I remember it being.
I love the ending to Son of Dracula. It is one of my favorite endings in the monster films. Because you have
they go against the standard ending.
Yeah, they go against the standard ending, and the guy who's playing, I forget his name in the movie.
I think he's another Frank.
Is he another Frank? Dracula, Son of Dracula. I put some. It is. Yeah, it's Frank Stanley. That's the character's name.
Yes,
Frank's whole it's like you have this whole thing where like Frank goes to his lover. You think he's gonna like join her and everything. He's like having this passion moment, and then all the people and the way the camera's going, you just have this slow guide to this Frank who's just completely dead-eyed, knowing he did the right thing, but watching the love of his life, his childhood friend, burning up, and he had to do it, and everyone's just like, oh my God, he actually killed him. And it's just it's a wonderful dour ending to a movie.
Yep. Yeah
I guess I'll go. I think this movie, story wise, direction wise, is good. I think there's a lot of cool stuff here. I like the whole concept of it, where it's taking the classic film noir plot of the femme fatale trying to get rid of her husband.
Exactly.
But the husband is Dracula, who's getting the tables turned on him. That's all really cool. I like the arc, Frank goes on and his ending there. I think it's all actually pretty solid stuff. And the director is actually a director who is known for film noir. In fact, I thought it was kind of funny. This is kind of a funny coincidence because just a few weeks back there was a John Carpenter was interviewed by this magazine. They asked him for like his top 10 film noir recommendations, and he recommends a Robert Siodmak film in there, saying, "Oh, all of his noir films were great." And I'm like, "Sir, are you including Son of Dracula in there, John?" But there's so many things I like transplanting Dracula to the southern setting. I think that's a really interesting move to put him in like the swamplands and in the plantation house. I think that's all really cool. I think Chaney just, when he's doing things like the burning coffin at the end, he's pretty good. But like, and when he doesn't have to talk, he's pretty good. But when he's trying to do the scenes where he's going like, "Oh, I like your countryside," he's like, "Oh, you people, you turned your noses up at me, blah, blah, blah." He's coming off like a gangster who bought the title Count and just moved in as being just a pissy social climber. He feels like such a weird... Now, of course, if he is Son of Dracula in this and not OG Dracula, that would actually kind of track. But the movie...
Yeah,
the movie's vague on that. And also, this introduced the trope of Dracula going by the name Alucard, which has continued on and has just become standard.
Yes.
Which I think is really cool.
That
Castlevania
yeah.
owes this.
Yeah. Well, Castlevania Alucard's just straight up his son. Yeah.
Yeah, his son Adrian.
That is noteworthy that this is the origin.
Yeah, I like to believe Alucard in this movie is just Alucard, his son, and it's not actually just Dracula, because I just think that was a stupid thing. And I completely agree with you. When I first saw this movie, I was like, "Wait a minute, this is Dracula meets Double Indemnity. What the heck?"
Yeah.
Like, the villain isn't Dracula. The villain is I think it's
K.
K. Yeah, it's K. She's doing awesome. Like, she's completely screwing with Dracula, doing all this stuff. It's so cool. I don't know. I was like completely down for it. Cinematography wise, there are so many cool tracking shots and everything. You have the shot where Alucard's flying over the swamp and everything.
Yes,
and then you have that following shot after Frank shoots Kay, and he's like running and stuff, and the camera's following and everything. And you got like the really good music. This is one of the only sequel films after the Wolfman that doesn't just blatantly keep using the Wolfman score, which is just awful because that score was perfectly made for the Wolfman. It just is not fitting for any of this. Has, from what I can remember, completely original music for it. And then the set design is just amazing.
I think there's a few pieces of music in here that are recycled, because they love to recycle the Son of Frankenstein music across all of these movies.
They loved the Wolfman music. That stuff keeps going until Creature from the Black Lagoon.
It keeps going. I don't know if you guys have ever seen King Kong versus Godzilla in the American dub. Yeah, but Universal completely replaced all the music with like their library cues, and so Godzilla will be walking up and they'll be like da da da. Yeah, and they use like the Wolfman music in there too.
Jesus.
There's a Boris Karloff movie called Black Castle or something like that, and the Wolfman's track is in there too, and I was just like, damn it, I can't escape my damn. I love this music, but my God, guys.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they reuse music, they reuse plots, they reuse premises. I mean,
sets.
Oh my God, sets.
Unashamedly. The set design in this is awesome. I thought the swamp looks awesome.
Yeah.
I think it's the same house as another movie we're going to be talking about.
Oh, is it? Oh my gosh.
I think it is.
Oh yeah.
All right.
Yeah. I don't have much more to say about Sun. You bring up some good points about the cinematography. I noticed those, but those didn't really like jump out at me as like a wow factor, but it is noteworthy. I don't have much more to say about Sun.
I think it's just because I'm a filmmaker. That's all it is. I'm always like constantly looking at shots and everything. So.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, it's one of the most well directed and well shot of all of them.
Mm-hmm.
I really do. It's my favorite of the Dracula films.
Interesting.
More than 1931 Dracula.
Yes.
Those are some fighting words, my friend.
I believe it's the first time they show Dracula turn into a bat on camera.
Yeah, I do think so. Yeah, I think you're right. No, don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. I do enjoy the original for what it is. The standout parts are just Renfield and Bela Lugosi's Dracula in that. But it is a little slow, and I do feel Son is a stronger film. Basically, it goes Son, Dracula, Dracula's daughter, and it's just one of those things where I'll watch Dracula, but if you ask me, hey, do you want to watch Son or Dracula? I'm going to go with Son.
Wow. No, I would never choose Son over Dracula. Dracula to me is like a 9 out of 10 in my mind. I love
It's interesting because we're all very different on this because most people adore Daughter.
Yeah, no, I'm not really hot on Daughter.
I enjoyed Daughter. It was good, but
I think Dracula 1931 is almost perfect. And what's really funny is one of my only criticisms is that it feels very weak with the cinematography. It's just a play. Like, that's like one of my only problems with it is something that Son of Dracula does really well, which you said was the cinematography. So that's really funny.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Also in Son of Dracula, I really love Professor Lazio, who plays the Van Helsing archetype, who knows all the Dracula stuff. Guy has so much character and charm, and he's having a lot of fun with his role. He's like always happy and stuff. He's like, yeah, there's all this kind of stuff, and I'm pretty sure Dracula has come to your place and village, and I don't know. He's just having a really good time. I enjoyed watching him.
It is really funny when they're in the middle of talking, like, oh, he can even turn into fog, right as he's coming under the door.
Yeah.
As fog.
Yeah.
That's cool. It's cool. They show all the things he can do. They do all those special effects. I think it's awesome.
They don't show all the things he can do. They show a thing or two, which, is more than they've ever shown.
They show him become incorporeal and immune to bullets.
That's great.
They show him levitate. They show him turn into a bat, turn into mist. They turn into a skeleton.
Those are absolutely positive elements of Son, but yeah. I don't know. I want to go right for the throat on this one. I want to go to House of Frankenstein. Are you guys ready?
I haven't rewatched that one, but I know it, so okay.
I've watched it many a time, so...
You brought up House of Dracula as a point, so I don't know if you have any strong feelings on Frankenstein here.
Okay.
Wait, but if I were to...
Jake?
Well, yeah, I was figured, because it wasn't one of the ones that you brought up, I don't think, in the discussions.
I brought it. I sent you a video to someone doing a review of it, and I had said...
Was this Frankenstein or Dracula?
Points. It was Dracula's House of Dracula.
Okay, yeah, I'm wondering because do you want to talk about House of Frankenstein? I'm kind of lukewarm on it.
Yeah, I'd love to talk about House of Frankenstein.
All right, cool. I don't like it.
I'll talk about it.
Who wants to talk first?
Jake.
Go ahead, Jake. You wanted to cutthroat it. Yeah, go for it. Rip it apart.
Right, so this is a horror movie. So, with Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman, my main thing with that is that the stupid poster is blatant false advertising, and they promise something that never delivers. House of Frankenstein takes it a step further, because they tell you in that, not just the poster, but in the marketing and everything, they say, all together. That was their big tagline. You got Frankenstein, Wolfman, Dracula. You got them like listing out like that's a freaking The Expendables trailer. Like, look at all these 80 stars. All these monsters are together in the same film. And then you watch that movie, and the first half is a solo Dracula film with only him. And then halfway through the film, he dies. And then the second half is a borderline remake of Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman. And I'm like, what the fuck are you doing? Because I heard... every problem that I have with Meets the Wolfman, I feel like that movie got like elevated after I watched House of Frankenstein. It's like they took all the wrong notes, they went all the wrong story direction, and God bless Boris Karloff, he's trying, but why isn't he the monster at least? So I don't know what the hell was happening with that movie.
He didn't want to be.
He didn't want to be.
He didn't want to be. He was like, "I'll come back, but I ain't doing the makeup and stuff." That was his like big thing. He was like,
even though he came back and put on tons of makeup as Dr. Jekyll in Abbott Meets Jekyll, that was years later.
They had a stunt double do that.
Oh, just for the makeup?
Jekyll.
Interesting. Yeah. That's probably why.
To be fair, Jake, they said they were all in the same movie. They didn't say they meet. I'm just kidding.
That's bullshit.
It's the fine print that always gets you.
No, the fine print says all together, not all separate.
No,
all together in the same movie.
The movie starts incredibly strong.
I should. Sorry to
the Dracula part of the movie. If the whole movie was just a Dracula movie, it would be maybe one of the best Dracula movies.
Yeah, that's what I should have added that in.
Yeah.
I like the Dracula story being told. It's not a bad Dracula. It's better than Son of Dracula. Boom. But in the context of what this movie is supposed to be, no way. Like, I was so disappointed. It's like if you go in to watch like Avengers 5 and then you get The Lighthouse. I love The Lighthouse. Where the hell is the Avengers? Like, yeah, that's kind of how I felt about that.
It's got Batman and Volko in it, so it would be Justice League.
Yes, yeah, they're gonna be in the second Snyder Cut. Yeah, exactly.
I will say, I do want to make a note that before I really go on, I'll let you go on, Bruce, but I think John Carradine is the second best Dracula next to Bela Lugosi. I think he does like.
Oh, he's great. Yeah.
I agree.
He's amazing.
Yeah, he's great. He's solid.
I mean, it's kind of funny that he loses half his mustache in his death scene.
Oh, does he? I've never noticed that.
Yeah, when the carriage turns over, he gets back up, and for like a second, he's missing half the mustache.
I never noticed that.
But
that's really funny.
I almost want to check that out and fact check that.
The Dracula stuff is really good. The last 5-10 minutes of this is also really strong when, the Wolfman finally does something. The Frankenstein monster wakes back up, fucking chucks the Hunchback out the window, carries Boris Karloff into the swamp. The ending's really good. The middle is just dull because it's love triangle crap that no one cares about.
And
Jesus.
like not for nothing, but like even in the second half where they quote remake Frankenstein meets Wolfman, they don't even interact. Sometimes Larry Talbot is like standing near Frankenstein on the slab and like talking to the scientist about things, but like they don't. There's no interplay. There's not even a conversation between any of those big three monsters that they're marketing are in them, let alone any interaction. Like one of them isn't even in the film. He's in his own separate film at the start of the film, which is like an anthology. I don't know what they were smoking. It's as if they went, wow, what a cool premise for a movie. Let's not care at all about how or why or what people actually want to see. Just throw them in there in any capacity.
Yeah, it's that is very strange because they talk about the monster like he's in a coma, but he's not. He just isn't doing anything. He's just sitting there the whole movie.
Yep.
And looking around like so you'll.
Well, to nerd out a little bit, Neiman explains that the ice completely damaged his tissues and stuff, so he's not mostly in a coma. He's just completely like his body's freaking dead. Yeah, he's like his freaking tissues are dead. He's like trying to keep the monster alive.
Yeah, but I just remember there's a scene where Neiman and Talbot are talking, and then you can see Glenn Strange just going like,
yeah,
like, what's going on? The whole brain transplant plot.
Yeah,
he was already stupid in Ghost of Frankenstein. In this movie, he has a whole scene where he explains his plan. Neiman explains his plan. If you chart out which brain is going where, it makes no sense.
Oh yeah, it makes no sense at all. I don't know how that's going to cure the werewolfism. I remember watching it as a kid. I was like, oh, I don't want to see the Frankenstein monster turn into the Wolfman. That'd be dumb.
Yeah, that was kind of funny. That was the implication, at least at some point during that explanation. I was thinking to myself, like, that would be very interesting. $10,000 says they're never going to do it. So...
I'm glad they didn't do it.
Frankenstein is the Wolfman.
I guess I can start giving my positive points on this film because yet again. So again, going back to that story as a kid, I thought that was it. He dead, and Wolfman's name isn't in House of Frankenstein, and I'm a bigger Wolfman fan than a Frankenstein fan, so I just never watched House of Frankenstein. And so finally I was like, okay, you know what? I have this DVD. This 9-year-old kid is like, yeah, I have this DVD. I should watch all of them. So I watch all of them, and I get to House, and I get my mind blown again because all of a sudden Neiman and they fall down and they find the ice, and I'm like, wait, what? What? They survived? There's more to the story. So nostalgia wise, it's always a beautiful memory for me where I'm like, holy crap, Larry Talbot's still alive. But again,
I think it's adorable that they tried to have a level of continuity with that film, and that's like the only piece, and everything else is just like so backwards.
Again, I think, I don't know why, I love the ice cave that they do in these 4D films. I think they're so cool and like interesting to look at. But I will say the werewolf parts of Wolfman in House of Frankenstein are extremely weak. And I think the reason why, besides just probably cutting budget, was I remember them saying that because of the war going on, they couldn't use as much yak hair. That's why in the mirror transformation scene, if you look at his hands, he's not wearing the gloves or anything. So I think that might be why, like, that might have contributed why the werewolf is so not really in the film that much, besides probably a bajillion other reasons. But in terms of Larry Talbot in this film, because I haven't really said this, but I'm not just a fan of werewolves. I think Larry Talbot is a really strong character. Like he's my favorite character, not just because he turns into a werewolf, but I think like his story and like development is really interesting and stuff. Because in this film, he's already been screwed over by one doctor, and then he has this other doctor promising that no, I can cure you. And then throughout this entire film, he's just extending it. So by the end of it, he's just tired of doctors all on. And if we talk about House of Dracula, that goes into that as well. So I just think that's like really interesting. And then I like his like interactions with Alanka and stuff like that. And I don't know. I just like watching Larry Talbot. I think he's cool. Again, we get to see the monster throw someone out a window. That's cool. And that's all I gotta say.
That was like my favorite part. Yeah, when the monster finally got off his ass and threw someone out a window. That was like, yes, it's way too late for this, but finally, yes, give me some of this.
Yeah. If you think of it kind of like an anthology, it works. The Dracula scene is great. I do agree. I think it is stronger because I think that's kind of cool where Neiman's like, yeah, you know, I could just stake you again if you get out of land. And he's like, all right, fine. And I think that opening is great. It's one of Carl. I think it's my favorite role of Carliff playing that like mad doctor and everything. I love his performance. I think he does like a really good job with a lot of the scenes and stuff.
Yeah, he does have more to do as a normal human character, not under all the Frankenstein makeup. Like you can kind of, you can be more expressive.
You can tell he's very relieved. And it's like the way he like madly talks about his stuff. I mean, the brain transplant scene or talk and everything. The plan is stupid as heck, but the way he says it, he's like, "I'm gonna put the brain of the Wolfman in you, so your days." And he's really selling it. It's great. It's fun to watch him just be this evil jerk and stuff. But for me, completely, again, it's a guilty pleasure. It's like a B movie to enjoy. I still have a fun time with it, but I can't defend it like I can defend Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman. It is very weak in terms of that. There's ideas with Larry Talbot that I'm probably reading way too deep into it, and there's too much nostalgia packed into it for me.
I think with Talbot in the movie, I think it's just they're basically giving him the same shtick he did in the previous movie, but it's all compressed into less time, so it feels less effective.
Yeah.
And it gets to a point where it's just like, damn, man, he does come off kind of whiny in this one, and I'm like, why does Alanka like this dude?
Yeah, the romance. He likes him because they're a man and a woman on screen, and they met like today, and that means they're gonna get married tomorrow. Like, there's never developed romance in these stupid movies. And sorry, I say stupid in a lovingly way.
I will say it is nice to see Talbot be a charmer again. He's still got that charm, but that's about it.
The way I remember it is he's sitting there going like, he's sitting there driving the carriage. He's like, "I'm Lawrence. Some people call me Larry."
Yeah, I was about to say like, yeah,
he
has charm simply because the script says that he has a girlfriend now, but he does not have Riz, man. He's no.
I'm thinking back to the. I'm thinking after like Alanka gives him the flowers and stuff, she's like, "Come on, here's a big smile for you. Can't you give me one?" And he gives him. He kind of plays along, gives her like a good smile. I actually really like the line where he says they used to, because he's like that. She's like, "What's your name?" And he goes, "Lawrence." And he's still upset because his eternal death has just been freaking disturbed by this Neiman. Which, by the way, I think it's like really cool when he's in the ice and he's still a werewolf and stuff. I just thought that was like really.
That
cool.
was
I wish
really
they
cool.
went
Yeah.
with that. It was like really cool. The way he was like stuff. I really wish he stayed a werewolf for that scene, but whatever. And when he goes to Lawrence and stuff, he's like really pissed off about it. And then she's like, "Do they call you Larry?" And then he kind of stops for a moment and he goes, "They used to." And he says it. He doesn't say it in a bored way. He says it in like an aggressively like, "Yeah, I used to have a life before all this." And so
Yeah,
I just like that. I think it's like a really good line.
Interesting. Okay, I never saw it that way. I always saw it as like he's being very, very like. You put it in the word whiny. I think like more like over dramatic. Like, how many movies is he gonna go to someone and complain about being a wolfman and then eventually get imprisoned? Like, and like, yeah, there is a story there. There is a character there. I think it's probably done story wise best in the first Wolfman, and from there.
Yes, that's true.
Exactly. I think Wolfman and Frankenstein do the best of that arc, but to defend Larry being whiny, you'd be a little pissed off too if you keep being unable to die. You finally die. Someone resurrects you, and nobody is listening to you. When you say, "Hey, I'm gonna kill someone in a month. Can we like speed this up? There's some important stuff here. The monster can wait. He's not dying anytime soon."
I think it's worth moving on then, because House of Dracula actually toys with the idea of curing the monsters, which is shocking to me. So I don't want to start this one. I want to hear what you guys have to say.
Do you want to go,
start
Bruce?
This
or...
one? It's.
I used to. If I start this one, it's going to be the defenses again. Oh okay. Yeah, really? Okay.
I used to like this one more than House of Frankenstein. I think it does some things better. Because even though the monsters don't really interact, the stories are actually interwoven this time. Like, they're all tied together around that Edelman. It's just weird how, like, Talbot will leave a room and then Dracula will walk into the same room. It's so funny.
It's so close to the monsters actually being together.
They teased that meetup for so long.
Like, if they had made a third one, maybe they would have figured it out.
No, they would have done the same shit.
House of the Wolfman.
They had so many films to do this.
They made House of the Wolfman.
They had like 5 or 4 crossovers with all their fucking people, and they just didn't. But whatever. Anyway, I shouldn't interject.
I mean, they figured it out in Abbott and Costello.
Yeah, with a joke. Great.
But no, I like the character of Edelman. I think is actually really interesting. I like that he's like this total like almost saintly kind of doctor who will help anybody. And the way that kind of bites him on the ass with Dracula, and you get to see kind of the darker side of him come out through the rest of it. I think that's all really interesting character stuff. It's just, as the monsters go, they aren't used well. The Dracula scenes are good, but they're not as good as they were in House of Frankenstein.
Yep.
Yeah. And the Frankenstein monster gets even less to do.
Oh.
And the Wolfman, which isn't stock footage, and the Wolfman is like, the idea of curing him is interesting, but the way they explain it is just so batshit insane. It's like something you'd see in like a bad episode of Star Trek.
Yeah.
So if I have this right, they say it's not actually a curse. He just has a very thick skull that puts pressures on his brain that make his hormones go crazy. And his belief that he'll become a wolf makes him become a wolf.
Yeah, no, so...
Yeah, certain pressures upon the brain during times of the month.
They fix it. They fix it by getting a special, like, fucking LSD fungus or whatever that, like, softens his skull, turns him into a newborn, and then makes him not... I like the idea of him getting a happy ending, finally.
Yeah.
But it's just so weird how they get there. Also, I have to point out, I guess Lon Chaney Jr. showed up with, like, a Clark Gable mustache and didn't want to shave it, but it's hilarious that the Wolfman doesn't have a mustache.
That's very funny.
Why would he? The werewolfism is like, oh, thank God, less work for me to grow.
Yeah, there's one small strap of face I don't have to put hair on. But also, like Larry Talbot is like depressed and stuff, but he cares enough about his facial hair to sometimes go, you know what, a mustache is appropriate this time of, you know.
You know what? 1940s, a man's got to stay well groomed.
Yeah, only in that
You
one
never
film.
know when you might find a hot nurse that is gonna fall for you. You know?
To immediately fall
You
in
gotta-
love with no development. Yeah, you never know when the next one's around the corner. Oh
Yeah,
man,
exactly.
may I
But
just
no,
add in because I do want to hear
it's like,
what
I
you.
wanted to say one more thing. It's like the Red Hulk, where he loses his mustache when he becomes the Red Hulk.
Yeah, exactly. I will chime in a little because I do want to hear what Dandra has to say next. But explaining the monsters as like medical deformities, that does not track with the movies we've already watched. Like the way Dracula's portrayed, he's averse to the Christian cross. That's not a side effect of like a tumor. Like that's like a religious thing because he made a deal with the devil, implied, you know. Like there's aspects to Dracula as a character. How does he become mist because there's things in his blood that attach to his blood cell? No, he has magic powers. Like that's just no way around it. You can't possibly do that. And then the Wolfman thing with the skull, absolutely. What, the Wolfman like bites you and then your skull gets hard and then you become a wolf? That does. No matter how you think about it, none of it lines up. So I really dislike that aspect, along with many other aspects of the movie. But just to chime off that really quick, that was not working.
And I do want to say one more thing. Technically, the Wolfman doesn't need to be cured in this movie because he solves his problem halfway through by getting locked in a jail cell during the full movie.
Yes.
Yeah.
And he can't get out. He can't get out.
To play devil's advocate with the science, I agree with you though. I think the trying to find scientific reasons for all of them completely stupid and everything. But to play devil's advocate, you can look at it in a way where Edelman doesn't believe in it, and he just is trying to find scientific reasons to explain away. And it just so happens to be that these scientific reasons could help. I mean, we never see Dracula actually get cured by his stuff, but if you want to have Abbott do connect to House, it was just a temporary solution. It was never
they
the
temporarily
actual
softened his skull. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. If you want to, you know, kind of do that, but I'm not ever going to defend the scientific reason. I think it's a stupid thing as well.
You can make that sort of thing work, but you can't do it when you have like 6 other movies that set it up a different way.
Yeah. Exactly.
But I will say it is an interesting idea because it makes this movie. It's on like the turning point of the horror genre where this gothic horror went out of fashion, and then in the 50s you get all the atomic science monsters.
Yeah.
So this movie is straddling that line.
Yeah, it's kind of like that first like jumping off point where it's like, okay, let's get more scientific with this stuff and everything. But we finally hit the point where, because I only ever had the Frankenstein and the Wolfman DVDs, so as much as I wanted to, I never got to see House of Dracula growing up. So the very first time I saw it was fresh out of high school, with a actual non-childhood nostalgia brain watching it, and so okay, look, the Dracula stuff kind of mid. It's interesting. Frankenstein's completely awful in this. Larry Talbot's story is the only thing here. The Wolfman part of it has been completely lost, but what we get is Larry himself, because at this point, now 2 doctors have screwed him over. He just can't find a way to die because Alanka's bullet shot him, killed him, but by the time another moon came out or something, it's already healed him. That's the way I like to think about it. So he just can't die. Edelman's like, yeah, I can help you, but you're going to have to wait for a second. And so at this point, he's just fed up. So he tries, you know, again, to just jump off and cliff himself. But then finally, Edelman, like you said, is a saint. He gives him hope. And he's like, all right, fine. I'll actually stop being suicidal. I'm ready to attempt to, like, you know, be positive and stuff about this. And what happens? This works. It actually works. He finally gets that happy ending and everything. But there's another side that I think nobody really talks about, is that this movie for Lawrence Talbot is a bookend to the Wolfman, because Edelman like Larry in the Wolfman, he decides against the better nature to help Dracula, to try to help Dracula. And in doing so, in doing something good, he gets punished for it. He becomes a monster. He becomes this thing that every so often he starts killing people and everything like that. And when Edelman tells Lawrence about this, Lawrence gets it. He trusts me. He's like, yeah, no, I completely understand. And he asks him, hey, if this happens again, kill me. Do it. Just completely do it. And like the ending to The Wolfman, where his father kills him and everything, well, not even that, just like in the very beginning, he did something good and something bad happened to him. Mm-hmm. But at the end of this, Lawrence kills the villain, and he finally gets to, he does something good. The guy who helped him out, he's able to kind of end that suffering that he never got ended for him and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. So I always find that like a really interesting, thematically, a bookend to that of what happened with Lawrence.
Yes. Yeah, that I do really like that interaction with him where it's like, I know what you're going through, so I'm not going to sell you out to the police.
Yeah, exactly. And also, I will say, I do think the prison scene is one of the coolest werewolf scenes.
Yes,
because all of them are standing there, and they're like, no, it's in your head, and then he just transforms, he turns around, he has like this cool turnaround, and then goes again, like the ice cave, he just goes rabid trying to get out of that cage and everything, and then for some reason he changes back, but before that it's just really cool, and I was like, oh, this is awesome. And so that's my whole spiel. And then the Hunchback girl, she's really cool too, because despite Edelman saying, look, I only have enough for this thing is happening to me, we got to get you fixed because I promised to fix you and everything. And she's like, no, Lawrence is turning into a werewolf, we got to save him first. She sacrifices herself, and then she poorly dies for that and everything. And there's a lot of like kind of like things where like good people are dying, just like the Wolfman kind of thing.
Yeah, she was.
For doing good acts, you get punished and stuff like that.
Yeah, that character gets thrown under the bus on the posters because she gets thrown in with all the monsters.
I know. And she's so sweet.
Yeah.
Too. And then also, I feel like the relationship between the nurse and Lawrence is better. It's not really shown on screen that much, but it is implied while he's healing, they're talking and stuff. So there's more of a natural, like, it's not like, oh, it is, but at the same time, it's just done better than Alanko was done with the nurse character.
A little bit, yeah, because there's the month gap between werewolf.
Yeah.
I kind of
exactly.
see it as like basically the same. Like we see the same level of them interacting on screen. Him and the nurse. It screams there's a man and a woman on screen, therefore they're in love. Like it's just so. That and not necessarily that I would want to see tons of romance in my House of Dracula movie like that. I don't even know. Like, I feel like they have to, like, the writers are obligated to put in this huge like romance plot with the main character or two or three, and just not care about developing it because that's what gets people in theaters is when there's a romance potentially on screen. It's like the movies can be more than this. So. I don't know. I feel it's very reductive. And then my other main thing is, obviously, I feel like a broken record only because they don't really change the mistakes they're making. But Jesus Christ, Frankenstein, he's like 1 for 1 with just not being in his own film for 90% of it and then showing up at the end and causing a calamity. Except this time, like you pointed out, it's the same footage of a different calamity. I think it's from Ghost of Frankenstein, if I'm...
It is exactly because
he's... Ghost of Frankenstein.
Yeah, it's just I think it's like color corrected, or not really because they didn't have that at the time. It was like exposure down of Ghost of Frankenstein. I think it's really funny, but just the fact that I was like, when I got that far, when I watched it for the first time, I was like, wow, you didn't even care to make an ending. You just took an ending that already exists from many movies ago.
Even the parts that are new footage. Lionel Atwill, who's in both movies, he's in Ghost and this, he dies in the exact same way. He gets thrown into a piece of lab equipment and electrocuted.
Yeah, even the parts they did are just the same.
Wait, does Lionel Atwood die in House of Dracula? I don't remember him dying.
I'm pretty sure he does. I'm pretty sure he's the guy who gets like thrown into the equipment.
Right, because Lawrence picks up his gun. That's what happens, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he picks up the Luger and just goes bam.
Yeah. So for me, House of Frankenstein at least had the first half, which was a good Dracula film. I don't like Dracula's implementation in this. It's weird. The concept that Dracula wants to stop being Dracula, to me, that's not Dracula. That's someone else pretending to be Dracula.
I think the writing is unclear, but I think what they're trying to say is that he's using it as a pretext to get into the house and go after the nurse, but he has like a million other ways of doing it that are much less convoluted.
That would be my rebuttal to that, where like if it was like this big put on, wasn't he immediately invited in? Like, what wasn't that already solved?
Well, he's already in the
something
house.
like
He's not even like,
So he wasn't-
his
he just shows
coffin's
up.
already in the basement.
So he doesn't need to.
Yeah, he
Whatever.
flies in and everything.
Whatever, man.
I will
Whatever.
say I really love the piano scene with Dracula in that one. I think the piano.
That's
That's
cool,
cool.
yeah.
That's good stuff. And Moonlight Sonata, come on, man, it's so good.
Oh yeah, I mean,
yeah.
come on, you can't go wrong with Moonlight Sonata.
Can't go wrong. But yeah,
I will say though, there was a House of Frankenstein and House of Frankenstein. They're there for like 2 minutes, but it's there.
Mm-hmm.
There is no House of Dracula in this movie.
yeah, that's true. That's
Oh,
true.
yeah,
the
that's
title still technically makes sense.
It's I haven't talked about this at all because and in my defense of all these films I've tried not to. But there's a book that was written called The Testament of Lawrence Talbot, and the author went out of his way to like explain like continuity or like what happens between all the things, and he does like a really good job and like really expands upon all the characters and stuff.
I've heard of this book. I heard that it makes them like tries to make them better and enhances them.
It is such a
there's
good
the other
book.
one I
Read
found.
it is worth it.
There's another one called what? Return of the Wolfman. Which
Yep,
I
Return
found
of the Wolfman.
A PDF of that.
Yeah, I read the PDF. It was amazing. I have the book now. I could not put that down. That is probably the best one. It's better than Testament of Lawrence Talbot, in my opinion, but I also really like Testament of Lawrence Talbot. But what I was just going to say was Testament, that author, he kind of says that house is the same house from House of Frankenstein because, you know, they're underneath and everything. So
Yep.
I think it makes sense.
Well, I
to
kind
me,
of
'cause I'm
assumed
like, oh,
that.
well, why else wouldn't he? Yeah.
I kind of assumed that.
Yeah, that's true.
Although I do like the scene where they go into the cave and they find Frankenstein and
Yeah, that's cool with the skeleton and everything.
the anatomy class skeleton that's supposed to be Boris Karloff.
Yeah.
So that means quite a lot of time has passed.
Yeah, no, a ton of time. I won't get into the book, but I will say that in a bit of defense for the weakness of continuity, I mean, it was the same thing for why like you'd hear like exposition kind of given like to catch up the audience on what happened in the past ones is like because back then there was no way to rewatch the movies. Once it was out of theaters, that was it. So you know, time would pass. So audience wouldn't really remember. So the whole need to keep continuity or like to remember things like that, I would even argue that maybe even the filmmakers like didn't even remember stuff and didn't really like think like, oh, we should probably fact check all this stuff. They probably just remembered the main things and kind of went from that.
Oh no, they didn't. Like going back to Frankenstein meets the Wolfman, I don't think Kurt Siodmak had like strong memories of Ghost of Frankenstein because he kind of described stuff from that movie in the dialogue, but then kind of described stuff from other movies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
It's interesting. But for me, it was kind of nice because when I did watch it, the only one I had seen was Frankenstein. So for some reason, it just made sense to me because I was like, oh yeah, it's all blown up and everything. And I remember he was in a windmill. Keep in mind, I was 8, so I was like, oh yeah, he was in a watery thing. So why wouldn't he be in an ice cave?
Yep, naturally.
But yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, that just about wraps up at least what I think about House of Dracula. Unless you guys have any other little points there.
Nothing really other than just like I'm not a huge fan of House of Dracula. I like parts of it, but I think as a whole it just it's a very kind of shakily constructed house of cards. It's like a Jenga tower with a bunch of pieces missing.
So
in fact, if anything, what I think about it ultimately is that there's a lot of interesting ideas in play here, but because it's like an hour and 7-minute programmer, there's not enough time for any of them to really work.
And they could have used that hour and 7 minutes more effectively, I will add.
True.
Yeah, I agree. I'll link that video that I was telling you about, Jake, in this chat. Because that was a lot of the reason why I started like looking at House of Dracula differently. The more I watch it, the more I've like kind of like liked it more. But I think that's just because I'm so obsessed with the Universal monsters at this point that I'm just I'm just gonna like them in general. But again, really the only reason why I defend this, the only part that I strongly defend is just Lawrence Talbot's story. That's about it. The story of Lawrence Talbot. Everything else is very weak. So
Yeah, fair enough. So that we only have 2 subjects left, and one is really broad. We have Revenge of the Creature, and we have The Mummy sequels. So I'll leave it up to you guys because one is 4 films. Which one do you guys want to talk about first?
The Mummy sequels. I only have one.
Let's just get that out.
Good.
Let's do it.
Let's
Okay.
get out of the way. Let's get that out of the way.
So I'm definitely
listen.
I'm not gonna start this one. I'm just gonna drop the real quick cliff notes on this. I rewatched all these for the sake of the argument. I did not even try to rewatch the Mummy sequels. I tried. I really tried to make myself put on at least one of them, and I was just like, fuck that. I know how I feel about them. I can express every feeling I have on all four of them. They all blur together.
I put on Tomb because that's what I thought this whole episode was going to be about.
We can focus on Tomb.
And while I'm watching Tomb, Jake was like, "Oh yeah, here's this list of like 4 other movies."
I sent it to you at that time. That was coincidental, but that's funny.
Yeah, Tomb. Oh yeah, Tomb. I feel the same way. Yeah, no, it's interesting that you bring up the Mummy ones because I've had to rewatch them because of the short film I'm working on. And Tomb. Listen, I'll get this out of the way. The original Mummy film, I like it. It's more of a movie you put on in the background to set a vibe or a tone for something. All of them are boring and just really bad, except for Tomb. I actually really like Tomb. Not like to the point of everything else, but I actually think it's a really strong film. Like, you got the Mummy doing the most in that, running around. I like the priest character. I think he does a pretty good job, like, walking around. It's really silly B-movie stuff. You get, from as far as I know, I don't know much of a lot of history of slasher stuff, but as far as I can tell, this is the very first film that the idea of the characters from the last movie all get killed off from in the next movie. And the main heroes and everything, they all killed off, and that's some things a lot of the slasher films have done, in the 80s and everything. And I think that's like really interesting that this film kind of has like that historical significance to it. I don't know. I like some of the shots and everything. There's a lot of like really cool wide shots of the Mummy walking around and like some cool shadows and stuff. I like the kills. I think they're all fun with the strangling and stuff. It's nothing groundbreakingly interesting, but at the very least it's better than whatever freaking Hand gave me. You have to understand, I watched Tomb like pretty much right after I watched Hand, so this was a huge step up for me. Also, I know the recap is so bad, and like if you marathon all of them, it's like, you gotta sit through the recap. But the fact the recap's there means that you don't even have to watch Hand. You can just go straight into Tomb, and all the good parts of Hand are right there. You're caught up, you're good, it's taken care of out of the way. And then I love the finale. First off, this is a 1940s film, and you got actors running around a completely burning building. You got Lon Chaney in the thing. He gets tossed into fire. Guys are getting tossed into fire. People are getting thrown around. It's just such a cool, exciting ending for a monster film, and it's so impressive given the decade and era and everything. It's like, wow, they managed to do all that in a burning mansion and everything. I think it's cool. But I'll get off my soapbox now. You can proceed to rip the film to pieces.
I'm actually a little opposite in that I kind of don't mind Hand, but that might be nostalgia. This one, I liked I liked Tomb as a kid. I owned the VHS tape. I watched it a bunch of times. Even back then, I noticed there's a scene where the priest is walking through the cemetery and like a tombstone starts wobbling in the wind.
I didn't even realize that.
Yeah, and it's just, first off, a quarter of the movie is recap, where it's just like, I do find it funny that like, even as long as the recap is, it skips like half of the previous movie. Like, they don't even show like, yeah, it doesn't show any of the museum stuff. It doesn't show the bar fight. Like, it skips directly to the desert. Which I thought was pretty funny. And they're all sitting in a room telling the story, which has a comical amount of flowers in it.
You're right, it does.
And it's just a movie where it doesn't, like, I watched it and it was like, it went in one ear and out the other this viewing. Because, I mean, at least in the other ones, you have, like, Mummy's Ghost has like, the non-standard unhappy ending at the end of it. And then Curse has, like, the what the fuck, why are we in Louisiana? But that one's almost as bad as this. Because Because the way I remember Curse is that I've seen it more than once, but it does not stay in my head. The way I remember that movie is it's just a constant foot chase. Like, it almost never stops. So it's like a really shitty version of Fury Road.
Curse is the one after Tomb, right?
Curse is the last one. It's the one after Ghost.
Curse is the last one. Okay, yeah.
Where they're in Louisiana swamps. And it's just the princess wakes up, she runs from the mummy, goes to a place, runs from the mummy, goes to a place, runs from a mummy, and then they end up in the tower. They end up in like the building at the end, and it all collapses. Whatever. Tomb is it is a proto slasher movie. I find it very funny that it takes place 30 years after the original, and everyone's in like old man makeup. But apparently World War II is still going on because they mentioned the Russian front in one scene.
Do they? Wow. Okay.
So it's like, either World War II went on a really long time, or the Mummy's Hand takes place in 1910.
Arguably, I don't know. I have no desire to ever defend Mummy's Hand. I hate that one. It's oh my god, I hate Mummy's Hand so much.
I am so alone on Mummy's Hand. But I don't know what it is. It's just nothing. That's how I would best describe this movie. It's Lon Chaney Jr., who I will give him credit. I think this is the only time he actually tries to give the mummy any sort of character at all, is in the scene where the priest orders him to kidnap the woman and he's like almost about to kill the priest. Because he's like, why are you wasting my time with this? But I mean, it's literally just the mummy moving very slowly against people who could easily get away and then back themselves into alleys, or in the case of Steve Banning, he stands in front of the door instead of opening the door and leaving the room. They go like, hey, a mummy! I'm done. It's just it's a nothing movie. Also, they not only have the stereotypical angry mob at the end of the movie, they recycle footage from Frankenstein.
Yeah, they do.
Even though they have a mob that they film, they couldn't have filmed like 3 more shots of them.
You know what's so funny is like I've been pretty silent because obviously I haven't rewatched them and I don't have a fond memory of them, but just you describing parts of the movies, I'm just like, no way. Like, I am literally on recording on my YouTube channel having watched this film, and I am not recalling the events you're describing, so I'm so glad that 2 different people are here to talk about this.
But one of the Mummy ones had the whatever version you had watched it had the inserts of
Christopher Lee.
Actor. Yeah, Christopher Lee talking about
he was
it.
there.
It was this one. It was this one.
It was this one. Okay, that would explain it, because in that you were constantly like, bring back Christopher Lee.
Dude, I miss him. Like, why?
you were I was laughing at every part because you're like, first bring Christopher Lee, save me from this film.
A part of me is pretty ashamed that like years ago when we started Hot Quality Content, I really wouldn't care about the quality of the rips that I would get. Now I do. I'm like, the audience deserves a higher thing. At the time, I am so glad I got the Christopher Lee version, because that was the only enjoyment I was getting out of that movie.
Where did you even get that? That's so cool.
I don't know. I checked YouTube first, but that's YouTube 5-6 years ago. I couldn't tell you.
Yeah, I think it was a Sci-Fi Channel airing.
Yeah.
Because it has the Saturn logo. Back when Sci-Fi Channel had the Saturn logo.
Oh, wow. That's crazy. I was going to say or 2 things about Ghost is that that's the final one. No. Is it?
Ghost is the third one. Curse is the last one.
Okay, Curse. I love the scene where the princess wakes up and is like walking out of the mud. I think it's an awesome scene, like the way it's shot and everything. And like she's just like reaching towards the sky and everything. I think that's really cool. Other than that, also the other thing I like is that the running gag from Hand to Curse, or from Hand to Ghost, is that you got the old guy, George or something, and the original priest is like, okay, you have one job. Take care of this place, keep her safe and everything, don't fall victim to anything. And then for some reason at the end, he has a change of heart, gets shot, fall down the stairs. You think he's died. Comes back in the next movie, this old cripple who tells his recollections of events, and he goes and tells the guy, listen, whatever you do not succumb to the wills of a woman. And then that guy succumbs to the wills of a woman. And then in the next one, the old guy is back again. And he's like, okay, so we've failed 2 times here. 3rd time's the charm, everyone. Whatever you do, don't fall in love with a woman. And what happens? John Carradine, for some stupid reason, is like, you know what? I'm going to go for it. And he fails. And then Curse, there is no, I'm going to send you. The guy is just like, I'll do it myself. Screw this. And he still fails. But it's just a funny thing that happens.
But now, I will give this to Curse. It actually does have a definitive ending for the series because everyone who knows how to make the Tana leaf tea dies. So Curse can't come back.
Yep. Wow. Yeah, no, I think my main issue, besides the fact that the mummy character is really interesting in the first one, and it's like a different character in the sequels, and I don't think that's interesting. My main thing is, like, the sequels don't progress. Like, nothing ever changes. It's the same movie, I feel like, over and over again, where, like, the mummy gets resurrected, he lumbers around, he does, like, the Heisman Trophy pose where he just does this, you know? And he just very slowly, usually off screen, strangles someone to death. And it's just looped and looped and looped. And I feel like they never go anywhere. Like, there's never, ever a character that can actually challenge the mummy and make it an interesting situation. Or what if there was a guy who's, like, trying to hunt or stop the mummy? Like, even if you had that premise, I feel like they still wouldn't pull it off very well. But, like, they never challenge him. They never do anything where it's like, oh, I've never seen that before in a mummy. Like, it's always the same. I feel like they made Mummy 2. The Mummy is the second one. And that is at least a different film than the first Mummy with Boris Karloff. And then they just, like, went Mummy's
Aside
hand.
from the parts they reused.
Yeah, they made Mummy's hand again and again and again. And I don't know. And you can say, oh, it's many years later. But if it's the same film, it doesn't matter if it's like 100 years later. It's still going to do the same shit.
They kind of progressed. They inexplicably teleported from Massachusetts to
Salem,
Louisiana.
That's where it was.
I mean, the princess kind of has like a whole thing that happens with her because they get her back, or they don't get her back, so someone goes to try to get her again, and then I think she goes to dust, and then, you know, that really sad ending where all that. I feel like they did enough new things, like, again, the burning mansion, the dour ending of the next one, and then that one scene I was talking about where the princess awakens and everything. Again, that's just cinematically. I'm in love with that kind of like the visualization of that. I think that's interesting. Sure. But no, you make some fair points. Again, you'll be hard pressed to find me defend the Mummy films like that. They are the weakest of all the films. Also, can I just say, this is more just a nitpick, I hate all the names for them. I'm sure you could tell. I can't tell which one apart. I like Tomb, but I still can't remember that it's Tomb. I'm like, wait, which one's which? It's that. I mean, at least the other one's like, okay.
They are never relevant to the plot.
No.
It's just the mummy's something random.
Nope. The mummy's toe, the mummy's haircut, the mummy's jacket. Like, it's never.
When I had to rewatch them all, I watched them with my mom, and she goes, so is there a ghost in the mummy's ghost? And I go,
no.
Not really, no.
There isn't even a tomb in the mummy's tomb. It's
exactly. There's no tomb.
At least in the Ghost of Frankenstein, they had the ghost of the guy whose name was Frankenstein in there. At least they barely
in
met
a
the
silly
requirements
way,
of the
but
title.
at least he's there. Yeah.
But yeah. All right. Well, I've said everything I need to, which was one sentence 10 minutes ago.
We should have just said 2 sentences about this and then finished.
Yeah.
I gave my positive defenses that I wanted to give.
I've been giving positive defenses for all of them so far. I don't think I have any for the Mummy sequels. I don't like anything about them. But
that's
we are here
fair.
At Revenge of the Creature, which is our kind of conclusionary film, which is kind of funny. Just because I was so silent, I actually did have this on the background this time. So I feel exactly the same as I felt when I first watched it, which is that the Creature trilogy is one of the stronger trilogies, but they do slowly get worse. I like the first Creature a lot. I think
That's great.
It's like a 9 out of 10. It's
My third
so
favorite
strong.
monster film.
Dude, it's so great. And like
so
the only Creature film better than the Creature is The Shape of Water, and it's not even a Creature film. So, Revenge of the Creature is good. It's an all right follow-up. It's certainly better than The Creature Walks Among Us, which is a film I was just like, perplexed by. Like, why did that even get made? But I had the same level of enjoyment when I saw Clint Eastwood of like, oh, holy shit, that's Clint Eastwood.
Yes.
Like, yay. But I think these movies work best when they're about people studying this monster and like trying to thematically, like the first one did it best, where it's like about man versus nature and like what is our role in it? Should we inject ourselves in it? Should we like harm the environment? And not necessarily like environment, quote unquote, but like our role in nature. What is it? What should it be? That's when the Creature movies are working their absolute top tier best, mainly with the first one. This movie still does some of that. It's not stronger than the first one though, so I have to say it's somewhat disappointing in terms of how great the first one is, but it is by no means the worst one. I think it is decent. I'd probably give it like a 7 on rewatch. I don't know what I gave it at first time.
7's fair. This one is... It's good. It's just... I'm just going to say it's a good, solid monster movie. It's not transcendent like the first one is. I have 2 major problems with this movie. One is that they fucked up the Creature's eyes. What were they thinking with that?
That was never good.
That was whack.
And the other thing is, after all the build-up, the ending is like super anticlimactic. He just stands there, and they all gun him down, and then they use the same shot of him floating away from the end of the first movie. The end.
Yep.
Like, the first movie had a little more intrigue of him taking the girl and them chasing him into the cave. Like, that was all really cool. This is just like, we found him on the beach, we shot him after he Yoda guy into a tree.
Yep.
But other than that, it's good. I actually kind of like the characters. I like that we bring back the boat captain for, like, a scene.
That's always fun.
Oh, yeah, he does come
He's
back.
fun.
Doesn't he?
And I like the Florida setting's interesting. They filmed and set the movie in places where I have family, and I've kind of been to some of those places, which is interesting. It's all in the Jacksonville area.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I gave it I gave it a 4-star, and it's number 6 on my list of all the films, so it's pretty high up there.
Oh wow, that's really high.
I actually really didn't. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. Not as good as the original or the very first one. Again, yeah, the mask. I'm like, why did they change up the thing? I don't think they had any costume difficulty. You did it for no reason. I think it's like really interesting what they do, where again we get to see the creature in like this like, you know, cage and stuff, and he's like in this environment again, like the werewolf being like stuck in this ice cave and stuff. You kind of at the same concept. I think it's so cool, like see what it's doing around, like how it's like kind of looking around, doing these different things underwater, and they're trying to interact with it, trying to understand it more, and you get to see these cool shots and everything, and then you know and then he escapes and he just wrecks havoc. I think he like throws a car at some point. Yeah, and he's going all through Florida at that point. He's like going on a beach. He goes to like this like pier restaurant or something. He gets to like the bungalow or like someone's apartment at some point. I mean, yeah, okay, he gets gunned down, and I guess it's a little lackluster, but it's kind of cool to see the creature get gunned down. I mean, it's like, oh wow, that's like, okay, wow, cool, we're really going for it. I don't know, it's just a fun time. It's better than What's Among Us. Like, it's a pretty strong, consistent thing. It does something different and interesting. It kind of just, you know, we get to see more of how the creatures would interact, because like in the very first one you don't get to see that much. I mean, you get to see him fall and everything underwater, but we don't really see like what would the creature do mean, he's just alone underwater and everything. We don't get to see how he would eat or react to all that. And all the scuba scenes are really cool as well, like them trying to talk and like it like grabs her and stuff like that. I've only seen so I'm a little weaker on it.
That scene where
the underwater photography is amazing in all three of them.
Yeah, even the third one, I think that's great too. That scene where he breaks out of the tank is like, even when I rewatched it for the first time, I was like, wow, that is the most memorable part of the movie. That is spectacular stuff.
It's really cool.
It's scenes like those that I feel like are absent from a lot of the other older Universal movies, where we don't really get to see the Wolfman do much wolfmanning. You know, we don't really get to see Frankenstein, aside from like very slowly strangle someone. We don't really see him do a lot. The creature, aside from the swimming, you get to see a lot of that. You get to see the creature be the creature. That's really fun. I enjoy that part.
In fact, his first scene in this movie is him grabbing a bird.
Yeah.
Yeah, he does grab a bird, doesn't he?
Yeah,
that was sick.
Fun stuff.
Yeah, no, that one's a pretty... And then, also, I was going to note, because you said Shape of Water, I feel like Guillermo del Toro took a bit of, like, inspiration from Revenge in this one, too, because there's that one scene where the two characters are talking and the porthole's there, and then he kind of, like, pops up and is kind of, like, looking and is, like, really curious about everything, and whenever I see that, I think back to when she meets the creature in Shape of Water, and, like, he's kind of, like, looking through the porthole and stuff, and things like that.
It's got memorable moments, mainly the tank thing, and obviously, like Bruce just said, the underwater stuff is always great in those movies. It's easily one of the strongest trilogies of the Universal Monster series.
I mean, that third.
Yeah,
one
let's
pump the brakes there a little bit. I do think it's funny. This is the only one that we all solidly agreed pretty much on.
Yeah. No, it's good. It's just, it's just that much below. Probably the reason why they got worse as they went along is because they had a year in between each movie. They cranked them out.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, hey, we ended on more of a positive note with a film that we all genuinely kind of liked.
Yeah.
You had it as like one we might disagree on. I think because you anticipated that like I wouldn't like it, but that's actually something that's pretty cool. That we.
I will say I was surprised to see this one is actually Rotten Tomatoes put out a list, and they update. It's one of those lists I think they did a while ago, and they update it whenever there's a new Universal Monster movie of like ranked by tomato meter. I don't know what their criteria is for ranking movies against each other that have the same score, but it bottoms the list at like 11%, and it's tied with. It's just under Tomb of the Dragon Emperor, which it has the same score as.
What, Revenge of the Creature?
Yeah.
Cap. No way.
Wow.
No way. This is the worst
I'd
one.
rather
Have
watch
they seen
Revenge.
the rest of them?
Yeah.
This is.
It's way better than Tomb of the Dragon Emperor.
It's better than like 2/3 of the Universal Monster movies. Like, oh my god, Jesus Christ. There's so many. Not because it's like it's a great movie or anything, but like so many of those like all the Mummy sequels are above that. No way. No way.
I mean, they're not rated particularly high.
Yeah, but like, damn.
I mean, it's ranked lower than Tom Cruise's The Mummy.
And hey, what I was criticizing about the Mummy sequels, like,
Whoa.
they technically they do different things with the creature every film. They have him do different. The characters are around him. They have him in interesting new scenes. He becomes a guy at the end of the third one. I don't like that, but it's new. Like, you can't say the same of The Mummy 17, where he's just lumbering and killing people again.
Yeah, and Creature Walks Among Us, I mean, it's a very interesting depiction of men being shitty to a woman. Like, that's 2/3 of that movie is about that.
Yep. It's another
basically.
fine reason. Well, that's easily the weakest one of the three. But,
it's bad. No. It only gets interesting at the end.
Yep.
And so you're sitting through just tons of shit, and it's like, oh, I kind of like that ending. Oh, that's it.
Yep. All right. Well, hey, look, this was actually really fun.
Yep.
I had no idea how long the discussion would go. It looks like in real life it's like about 2 hours, which means in the editing bay
shit.
it'll probably almost be that, which is pretty fun.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I'm looking at 146 right now.
This
I will
great.
say I was shocked. I didn't think I'd be able to make some points that you guys would like say, oh, you made some good points.
I think
I was kind of mentally prepared to be like, no, you're completely off your rocker.
Well, no, Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman was the one that we feel so passionately opposite about. So that's the one that was just like, wow, you genuinely like the whole singing and dancing scene. I had always seen that scene as like this stupid, pointless, everyone in the 40s and 50s loved musicals, just throw a musical scene in there. And you actually brought some type of merit to it. Still not a great movie, but you know what?
you know what? I'll take the wins I can get.
Yeah. All right. Well, hey, you mentioned tie-in Universal Monsters Media as Testament Lawrence Talbot, and you mentioned the Return of the Wolfman. I have heard of both of those, but you did not, in fact, mention The Devil's League, which is, in fact, the best Universal Monster House movie that they never made. It is excellent in every way. The author's probably great in bed. I just want to throw that out there as well.
You know, I it'd be cool if the author sent me a copy. I would, if he did, I'd go out of my way to read it. I'd put down everything else I'm doing to read it.
Would you actually read it? Would you?
If you actually sent me a copy, I would 100%. I'd be like, okay, I'm gonna read it. I have some things going on, but I will read it if you send me it.
Tell you what, I'll talk to the author. I'll have you just DM him your address. You could tell him your address on air if you feel like, but I don't think that's the smartest idea. So, all right,
I live in Lanrelly country in England. That's where I live.
Oh yeah, okay, great. I'll send it right over there. And, all that extra postage. And after all that custom.
Visaria.
Visaria.
Oh yeah, I was in Mexico recently, so like if you lived anywhere around there, I could have.
Yes, you went to see the Dark Universe.
I did. I saw the Dark Universe happen in person. It was crazy. But yeah, all right. Well, that just about does our show. There's no better way to end it other than the Dark Universe. So we will catch you guys next month on the 1st of every month. I'm trying, man. I'm hitting those deadlines. 1st of every month, we're doing this wonderful show, and we probably won't have a guest, but if we do, hell yeah, sounds fun. So. See you guys next time. Go check out Xander's channel, Emerald Quill Studios. I'm about to do exactly what I'm telling the audience to do right now. I'm about to hit play on one of the videos. So.
I got 2, Anxiety's Moon and Unseen Obsession. So if you like monster stuff, you're going to really love those 2.
Hell yeah. You give me your videos, I'll give you a signed copy of my book, because I'm just that nice.
Oh, heck yeah.
I didn't even get that.
Nah, fuck you.
If you end up liking that... You know what? If you end up liking the films, I'll give you signed copies of my scripts.
I thought you were going to print out the thumbnails of the YouTube videos and sign those and mail those to me.
You can have a signed copy of my so far non-existent book.
Oh, hell yeah.
It's just Google Docs.
Okay.
Perfect.
Cool,
a bunch of Google Docs. Yeah. It's print out your list of scripts you haven't done yet and sign that, and I'll be great. I'll frame that, put it on the wall. All right. Well, hey, thank you guys, both of you guys, so much, as always. So, see you guys next time.
Thank you for having me. I had a great time.
Yeah, you're welcome. It was good. It worked out real well.
It did. All right. Bye-bye.